Again, here's a look big picture at where things are as we stand right now, looking at the 14 Big Ten teams and the 4 West Coast squads that will be joining us this summer in Big Ten football. You also notice the Minnesota Gophers are sitting there with a top 40 ranked class. Well, let's bring in the head coach of the Gophers, PJ Fleck, who just wrapped up his 7th year in charge of the program. A lot to get to here, PJ. Let's go to the transfer portal first. You're bringing in Max Brosmer to the program. How come?
Well, first of all, when you're hitting the transfer portal, I mean, there was one point in this bull prep that we weren't having any quarterbacks on scholarship coming back next year. So that's one of the main reasons. But he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Led FCS in passing last year, one of the ultimate leaders on and off the field. And he's a 3.8 student in kinesiology, wants to be a heart surgeon. I can go on and on about why we wanted this young man inside our program to lead our football program. And, you know, he's got 1 year left, but you talk about an ultimate competitor, a leader, a connector, and a very, very efficient passer. And that's what we need leading our offense next year.
Just about everybody in the country wanted safety Coy Parrish. How come?
Well, I think he's one of the most explosive, dynamic players in all of the country. And when you look at it, I think it came down to this. You know, his mom has a club. I'll show you that in a minute. But he's one of the most aggressive players. I mean, he's a great tackler. He's a wonderful leader. He plays everything from offense, defense, special teams, returns punts. He's explosive. He's incredibly confident. We're talking about one of the top 70 players in all of the country. He's one of 4 All-Americans playing in the bowl game that we're bringing in here, which is a record for us. And at the end of the day, it came down to this. You know, this is the Bad Moms Club, and that's what his mom belongs to. And they got a club down there, and they want him to be a Gopher. And I think that was the deciding factor in the whole deal was he listened to his mom and his mom's club.
Wait, what's the Bad Moms Club?
It's a pretty cool club. It's a bunch of players, moms that kind of get together and do all kind of sorts of things together. And if you get a chance to get to know Danielle, his mom, she's fiery, she's tough. They have their own little bond together with a bunch of moms, and they get together all the time, do a ton of stuff together, and they call themselves the Bad Moms Club. So, listen, that was a huge part of the deciding factor, and we had to get permission to be able to recruit him and to keep going forward for that club because that's pretty important in his life.
I think she's going to fit in just fine with you, man. I think that's going to be a nice fit.
You got it. I agree.
Speaking of, I mean, you really dominated the state of Minnesota this year, as much as you have in your tenure. Why?
Well, I think this is just consistency. It's cultural sustainability. There's going to be some unbelievable historic seasons. There's going to be some rough spots here and there. But I think the sustainability and the consistency of what we've been able to do in the state really came through. And that's a credit to Coy. That's a credit to Mason Carrier. That's a credit to Mo Sane. I can go on and on about the in-state young men. But they had to make that decision. We've had plenty of times where the number 1 or 2 or 3 players in the state of Minnesota have went somewhere else. And this year we were really consistent with it. We've been knowing these players for the last 2 to 3 years and being on them. And it's hard when you're a top 100 player, top 50 player, and people come in on you really late and you get your 4-star. But to hold strong and stay steadfast to your commitment means a lot to us. And hopefully this is the recruiting class we needed to springboard us into the future where all Gophers and all Minnesota high school players, if they're good enough, stay right here in the home state and play for the Gophers.
You mentioned Mason Carrier in there, and you told me beforehand you had a story you wanted to tell about him. What was it?
Oh, first of all, he's a legacy player. His dad and mom graduated from the University of Minnesota. Dad graduated from our Carlson School of Management, which is our business school. But there's a great clip to know exactly what this guy's like. And we're talking Big Ten football right now, Mike. And there's a Twitter clip of him. He built an entire snowman with his shirt off and then came and tackled the snowman out of nowhere. If that doesn't describe a Minnesota linebacker playing in the Big Ten, I don't know what is.
Again, we're getting a lot of really good fits. You always talk about fits being important. I feel like we have a lot of good fits with your program right now. How does a quarterback out of Arkansas, Drake Lindsey, fit with you guys?
Well, first of all, I mean, he's one of the best passers in Arkansas history. He's the player of the year in the state of Arkansas. He's up for Gatorade National Player of the Year. He's up for Max Preps National Player of the Year. He was that for the state of Arkansas. A lot of lineage to Minnesota. His grandfather played for the Vikings, Bud Grant. His dad played at Arkansas. His grandfather played at Arkansas. What I give him credit for was he kind of went outside of what his family's always done. He threw for 91 touchdowns in 2 years and only 7 interceptions. He's 6'6", about 230. He is incredibly accurate. I got a chance to watch his whole state championship game with his family, and he made every throw, every shape, every throw, and led him to a state championship at 13-0. So you talk about a leader, a winner, and somebody who stayed the course with us from the state of Arkansas, had a lot of options, stayed committed to us, and we look forward to his future here in Minnesota.
PJ, you always bring the heat on these, man. I appreciate it so much. Have you and your family a great holiday.
You as well. Row the boat, Sky Ma. Go Gophers. Happy holidays. Thanks for having us on.
Look at some of the top commits heading to Minneapolis. Want to point out the top player from the state of Minnesota, the top player from the state of Wisconsin, and the top player from the state of North Dakota are all going to play for PJ Fleck. And yet no one is ranked higher than Coy Parrish, who is the highest ranked recruit to go to Minnesota since 2016 Carter Coughlin. Pretty impressive.
And he turned out pretty good, but Coy Parrish, an extremely high upside guy. Big time to get his signature today because Ohio State was coming at him, USC was coming at him, Florida State was coming at him. Minnesota holds them off. Just an outstanding all-around athlete. I mean, this is a 10'8", 900-meter guy. This is a guy who scored over 1,000 points in his career in basketball. He's played wide receiver. He's played special teams. You see the speed and the athleticism on the field. And he gets some Cooper DeJean comparisons because of that multi-sport background, and I think he could have that type of impact for Minnesota. Speaking of multi-sport athletes, Riley Sunrum is not only an outstanding football player, he's a state champion thrower in track and field. He can play. Some schools recruited him as an offensive lineman. I think his potential is sky high on the defensive side of the ball. Had opportunities to go a lot of different parts of the country. Miami even came all the way up to North Dakota to recruit him, which doesn't happen a lot. Big pickup there for Minnesota. And then Jalen Smith, I think, might be the sleeper of the class. Explosive wide receiver, had 9 touchdowns as a senior. Another track guy. I think that's a theme in this class is they found really, really good athletes. This guy runs 10.8 in the 100 meters, can take the top off of defense, and still learning to run the route tree. But when you have that type of speed and natural ball skills that he has, I think he has a real chance to develop and outplay some of his rankings in his offer list.
Yeah, Mason Carrier, I mean, this is the kind of guy you want as a linebacker position. 6'2", 225, really does a great job of running, diagnosing plays, getting out in space and being able to make those tackles. Really understands what he needs to do technique-wise, understands his reads, able to fight through the trash to come up to make big plays, and that's one of the things that they're going to continue to need. Johnson playing the tight end position. Little undersized, but really, really athletic. A guy that's going to need to put weight on, but I think right now shows the ability to be able to make plays out in space. Long strider, I think he's going to have an opportunity to be pretty good at Minnesota. You see him in a matchup situation, running a over route there, does a great job of attacking the ball with his hands.
Well, we know PJ Fleck wants to run the football, so as you look at here's Jaden Wright. I watched his tape, I said, wait a second, he looks just like Mo Ibrahim.
Oh, wow.
Same size,
Hold
6'1", 230 pounds, runs like a bowling ball. I wouldn't say he has elite speed, but what you see on tape is elite balance. You saw a couple hurdles there, elite strength. Breaks a ton of tackles. The key for him is going to be to work on that burst and that speed in the offseason. Maybe one of the more sneaky good gets in the portal in our conference's offseason. Max Brosmer, love his story. Led the FCS in passing with 3,500 yards, 29-6 touchdown to interception ratio. How about this? PJ told us he wants to be a heart surgeon, biomedical science major. How about that? I think reading defenses sounds a lot easier than performing heart surgery. So I think he can get it done.
It better be easier.
Yeah.
Exactly.
How about this? 2 of the 5 highest ranked commits to Minnesota in the internet era are in this class in Parrish and offensive lineman Nathan Roy.